Guys, welcome back to another video on the Stratus Forecast Weather Channel. Boy, do I have a video for you guys today. First of all, a snowstorm is looking very, very likely for the Northeast. Sunday through Monday. Like I said, a winter storm is looking very likely at this time for the Northeast, and I'll give my predictions for that in just a few minutes. But also, the rarest storm probably I've ever seen, honestly. There is high potential right now for a winter storm that could extend from the northern half of Florida all the way back to Houston, Texas. This could be a rare winter storm, and it looks to me like it could be a snow and wintry mix. And then after that, all the heck is going to break loose. A shot of Arctic air, the polar vortex, I'm sure you've heard of it. The polar vortex is going to usher in very, very cold air into the upper plains and then quickly rush it down to the eastern half of the country. Most, if not the entire East Coast, will be well below average temperatures. We could be looking at freezing marks all the way down into northern parts of Florida. Not to mention wind chill values, which in the upper plains throughout the Northeast and New England could be as low as 10 to 20 degrees below zero, and negative 40s are possible up near the Minnesota area and back to North Dakota and Montana. So yeah, we got a lot to get into, but first off, we're taking a look at what's going on out there right now. We're not going to really look at the temperatures because the temperatures are still a big story right now, but they're not as major as they're going to be come next week. Right now, we're just dealing with a little slipper system moving through the Great Lakes region. This will eventually move off to the east, creating some wintry bag of precipitation, rain and snow all in between. I wouldn't be shocked if we get some lake effect snow out of this, but it's going to be mostly out of this system. Scattered snow showers happening throughout the upper plains. Notice a little system back through the southeast, even getting into portions of the Midwest with a little bit of rain activity. This is our first part of the system that's going to move off to the east. There's going to be this low pressure system, this area of low pressure, kind of like a trough almost. This sets up right along the eastern seaboard, and we sometimes see areas of low pressure develop right along that boundary. So where that boundary forms is determined where the storm is going to form. We're thinking right now it's going to form somewhere off the coast of New York and then quickly make its way up the eastern seaboard. As of now, I tend to believe with the GFS model a little bit more, but we'll see how things go. Rain showers also happening down near the Miami area, near Florida. But other than that, we still have this this kind of like this kind of almost atmospheric river happening. Usually we see it in the Pacific Northwest, specifically in the Northern California area, but it is happening in the southern Pacific Ocean and is streaming into Texas. I think that's where most of our moisture is going to set up. But right now we're going to get right into future, actually we're going to take a look at the watches, warnings, and advisories. So here's your watches, warnings, and advisories. Notice we currently have a blizzard warning happening up near the North Dakota and Minnesota area, particularly in far northwestern parts of Minnesota and far northeastern parts of North Dakota, with a high wind warning in effect for portions of right in those two border lines between the border of North Dakota and Minnesota, and we got winter weather advisories that extend all the way back through Montana and go back to the Rockies all the way down into portions of northwestern parts of Texas. We also have winter storm warnings that are in effect for portions of New Mexico and east of Idaho. We also have wind advisories and high wind warnings in effect for New Mexico and western Texas. You'll notice this is what we've been talking about all week long. The models were tend to agreeing with us staying offshore, but I didn't really look at the other weather models to see if there's any inconsistency with the models, but now I can see it all what's happening. So winter storm watches extend up to the Appalachian Mountains. This includes Virginia, west, I think it's somewhere in Virginia, back to the Appalachian Mountains, all the way back up through Massachusetts, parts of, and back through Vermont as well. They also extend through portions of Connecticut and not Rhode Island, but particularly Connecticut. And I expect these winter storm watches to actually get extended up through Maine, particularly into the I-95 corridor back through southern Maine, and particularly through down East Maine, and maybe up towards Bangor and up through portions of Holton up there. I think they're going to extend this winter storm watch. and probably within the next 24 hours, since this winter storm is looking rather likely right now and doesn't look like we're going to have much more changes. Well, there will be some more changes to the forecast, particularly the position of the area of low pressure and the snowfall map, obviously, but the winter storm watch, some of these areas down here would probably be changing the winter storm warnings come the next 24 hours, since they're the first ones that are going to most likely see it. I would think like through Saturday and through the day on Sunday before the northeast half of before the northern interior northeast of New England sees the actual major winter event out of it. But now we're going to get into future radar. Alright, so I typically do not start off with the GFS model. I tend to go with the European model, but the European model and the other models are a little bit inconsistent, but I tend to believe with the GFS models right now because it's a little bit in between both of them, and it's been pretty consistent where it wants to go. So we're going to get right through this right now. So moving on, so we get this boundary to set up. Notice there's an area of low pressure that's setting up and strengthening off the coast of the Virginias, obviously in the Carolinas. Then we got this area of low pressure up here. This is pretty much forming the boundary right now. This is going to create some snow and rain for interior New England particularly. Then we're watching this next secondary area of low pressure. This one is going to be the big wind storm maker. And not to mention, behind this cold front and behind this other low pressure system, there's going to be brutally cold air moving in. You can already see where the jet stream is positioned. It's like right here. This is the jet stream right here. This is perfect for a winter storm setup. Moving on through, we get this area of low pressure. So that first goes through. Notice rain showers and locally steady rain at times and heavier snow bands setting up in through the interior New England. And here we go. This is where it gets interesting. So this area of low pressure down here is a little bit too far offshore to be anywhere concerned with precipitation-wise, but this is the next area of low pressure that we have to watch for. GFS model takes it right up the coast. Notice it stays particularly right up on the coastline. But since it's so cold, it's not really going to be quite enough to be a mix line issue. It's going to be mostly a snow event. I could see some mixing happening in Rhode Island, but other than that, I don't really see much in the way of rain happening there. And then that moves through, and this is basically a major winter storm for the Northeast. Obviously, this storm isn't particularly like large-scaled and wide area of precipitation. It's mostly more condensed into one storm and basically a tight window. It's going to be a Sunday night to Monday winter storm. And then that moves through. Notice it takes pretty much all day to get through to pretty much clear the entire state, really. So we'll have to see how that goes, I guess. Area of low pressure strengthens, then right directly behind it, here comes the cold air, right behind it. Boom! There it goes. And then, and then I'm sure you can see what's going down near the Gulf Coast. We got snow, sleet, and freezing rain in portions of Texas, and that snow line is way far south. I tend to believe this is not going to happen, but obviously this is still 4 days out, but man, it's getting close now, so this is looking more likely. So it looks like a winter storm is possible for the Gulf Coast, and where the temperatures are cold enough, the GFS model is actually a little bit far north of this, which I tend to agree with. Florida doesn't really get any wintery precipitation out of this, so I don't think Florida is going to be dealing with a whole lot of snow, but this would be a great setup for a nor'easter. Only problem is high pressure and control. Moving on. Things become way more uncertain. The GFS model is indicating another potential winter storm just offshore of New England again, but this one could probably graze portions of eastern and down east Maine, so probably not that big of an issue. Moving through, cold air dominates. It really dominates. And then potentially another winter storm. The GFS model is indicating that it's going farther north. I don't know if I believe it. I'll have to look at the European model, but this could be a big windstorm for Maine again. But that goes through, and then it's basically back to cold air. So now we're going to take a look at the European model. Here's the European model. So we go through, that area of low pressure moves offshore. Here we get the secondary one. I think this is too far to the east. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's too far to the east. And this would probably create a scenario where you see probably 1 to 4 inches probably through Maine, particularly down east Maine all the way back through the southern New England, back through, Maryland. I tend to believe this is not going to happen. I tend to believe this area of low pressure is going to be a little bit farther off to the west, which would promote mostly a heavier snow event. That moves through, and then the European model has a southeast bias. Remember that. Please remember that. Southeast bias. That's why I tend to believe this winter storm is in the northeast is a little bit far off to the southeast. So I think it's going to be a little bit far off to the northwest. So that's why the GFS model, the European model, is indicating at a major winter storm and potentially freezing rain, making it all the way into portions of Florida, which I just do not believe. High pressure in control, obviously that would keep this storm way south, but obviously it would also lock in that cold air. But notice how close these warm and cold isobars are. They're so close to each other, which indicates that temperature reading. So if we actually, let's go right here and take a look at the sound reading, okay? Just for example. Oh, sorry. I'd have to look at the GFS model and do it, but moving on, that system rides up the eastern seaboard. Only problem is it's staying offshore because strong high pressure in control, and that will continue to usher in the cold air and lock it in place. European model continues to keep that cold air in place. Then we get another little system to go offshore. It doesn't really make it up there because cold air, once again, is suppressing storms to the south. And then things may get interesting. We get another area of low pressure that develops, and this could be another winter storm for the particularly interior New England and Maine area, but this is going way beyond forecasting. This is like 10 plus days out. So this is not, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a very low likelihood of happening right now. I'll be shocked if this actually happens the way it's going to. And notice, the European model doesn't indicate much of a warm-up. It indicates mostly cold air in place. So let's take one more look, okay? So I want to just take a look at a few additional models. Hold on. Here's the European model, okay? GFS model. European GFS model. I'm going to go a little bit far in the future here, not by much, but enough to prove this scenario. Notice how far off to the southeast the European model has the area of low pressure. GFS model has it way closer to the coastline. European model, GFS model. European GFS model. Now I also want to take a look at a different scenario with different weather models, alright? So for example, let's use the icon, alright? Let's see where the icon puts this area of low pressure, okay? See, all of these weather models are trending more to the west. So there's the icon model. Here's the newest NAM model, alright? Look how far to the coastline it is, particularly with the NAM model. All these models are switching more to the northwest, which is why I tend to believe the European model is going to be wrong. I believe it's probably within the next 24 hours, the European model is going to be somewhere within the ballpark of the GFS, the NAM model, and maybe even the icon model. Alright, here's the GDPS model. Here's the GDPS model. Look at this. I think the GDPS model is a little bit too close to the coastline. A little bit far west, in my opinion. It's got a general idea of what these models are doing, but notice, most of these models are staying right along the coastline, which would promote a very heavy snow band, but not to mention also the gusty winds. And the GFS model, the last time I looked at it, was actually indicating at possibly blizzard-like conditions. Alright, let's try a United Kingdom, the UK model. Let's see what this one does with the area of low pressure. It's in the same ballpark as the European model, but obviously don't believe it, because this is still a little bit far off to the southeast. So now I want to take a look at the snowfall accumulation. So we're going to particularly start off with the GFS model, which GFS model, I'm going to go with the more accurate reading of snowfall. But here we go. There comes that system, and boom, we get this streak. I'm going to zoom in on this actually. I wanted you to focus on particularly down East Maine and through the New England. I think this is a bit much. Here's the latest run. Here is the latest run from the GFS model. Notice, areas, a wide stretch of like, I don't even know, 5 inches all the way to like, close to 50 inches of snow through portions of Maryland, back through Pennsylvania, back through Massachusetts, all the way through southern Maine, and into the Holton area of Maine, all the way up into portions of, I'd say, northeastern Maine. But the European model, don't have access to the 18Z, which literally just came out. I'm assuming I will tomorrow, so I'll make an update on this. Notice, so the actual area of precipitation is actually up here, but for some reason it thinks it's down here. I think the European model might be having technical difficulties. But this is obviously not what's going to happen, most likely. It's still a possibility, but it's most likely not going to happen. I'd say down East Maine and Southern Maine with this model have the best chance of seeing, I'd say like 1 to 2 inches of snow at most, maybe 1 to 3 inches along the down east coastline. I tend to believe the European model is going to be incorrect. And let me prove it why. This is why right here. The European model has been found to have a southeast bias in its precipitation forecast. In Southeast Asia, which we're not even forecasting, but whatever, in Southeast Asia, the model overestimates precipitation by 31% on forecast day 3. So that basically tells it all. So most likely this area of low pressure is going to end up somewhere in the Gulf of Maine by the end of this entire run. The AT&Z just came out. I don't have access to it, but that's what you're looking at for snowfall accumulation. We can also take a look at other models particularly. Alright, now on to the southern storm. Okay, southern storm now. Now we want all the ingredients obviously. So here we go. Southern storm. So the first one develops, gets out of here, and impacts the northeast significantly. And then boom, we get an area of low pressure to develop. Again, this is still a big question mark on whether or not we actually see an area of low pressure down here. But most model runs are indicating and something down here, right? So that mix line could get all the way down into portions of southern Louisiana. But what we want to take a look at is the sound reading, obviously. Okay, so the sound reading. Here we go. See, here's the nose. So this is what's tricky about this entire forecast. This is what's tricky. So we have a big nose, as you can see, there's a big nose here. So the temperature right here is around 28 and 32 degrees. So we'll just go in between at like 30 degrees, I'd say. This is like 10 degrees higher right here, okay? So this is like 40 degrees right here. That's up in the atmosphere, right? Obviously, when you get down closer to down to the surface, you get down into the 20s. So I wouldn't say this is going to be particularly a snow event. I'd say this would be more of a mix and freezing rain event. There's that. But quickly, once you go into these heavier pockets of snow, the nose decreases, not incredibly, but pretty bad, pretty significantly. So the near surface temperature is pretty close here. It's pretty accurate reading, so 26, 27, I'd say 26.5 degrees is accurate reading. And we go about 5 degrees to 7 degrees. That's around 32 to 33 degrees, which that is perfectly good enough for snow. Maybe some freezing rain and sleet in there, but that is particularly almost all snow in that particular area. Okay? And that is the sound reading. Sound reading. Everyone wants to know what the sound reading is. So, the sound reading is very useful with looking at what really good for precipitation, particularly. So if we have a nose, so this is near the ground this is near the surface, right? So let's say the surface is at 32 degrees, right? And we have a nose kind of like this. This is not good for snow. So this is about 3 kilometers up in the atmosphere, which I think is like over, I'm not sure, like 4 miles or something above the surface. So up here, so obviously we have cold temperatures down here. It goes down, and right here, so you have precipitation particularly falling as snow up in the higher levels of the atmosphere. We get down to about 3 kilometers in the atmosphere, and the temperatures go up to around, I'd say, 35 to 37 degrees here. And that creates more of a freezing rain and rain. And then once it goes down, those temperatures significantly drop again. So it refreezes when it gets to the surface. So that's either sleet or freezing rain. That's how that works, okay? So I think in these heavier pockets of snow, you'll be dealing with mostly snow. But right along the coastline, I just think it's too warm to be freezing rain. And you'll notice that as we go through. So we'll look in particularly one of these other pockets here at the sound reading here. So here's, again. So notice this. We have that nose, obviously. It's not as far up in the atmosphere on these sound readings, but it is, I think it's far enough in the atmosphere to be there. So obviously you have this big downslope here of temperature, so it goes from around, I think that's like 21 to 24 degrees, I'd say, all the way down to, that's freezing temperatures, right? And the surface temperature is around 31, 32 degrees, so generally around 31.5 degrees. And that goes down. Down here, it gets, that's all snow. It goes down to about this mark, which is about 1.5, no, 1.1 to 1.2 kilometers in the air, in the atmosphere particularly, and that is going to that's going to turn into probably rain at most, and then it's going to refreeze down to the surface, which would be freezing rain. There's that. Areas of high pressure will particularly block this system from going up the eastern seaboard, so this system will be pushed offshore, off the east coast, and then another area of low pressure develops, but that's what that is. Here's the European model solution, okay? So we go through, so here's the European model. Alright, boom, right here. I want to go to about this mark right here. Okay, so notice that freezing rain is now offshore, but if we take a look at the readings once again, oh, we can't, okay, never mind. So I'd say so this actual freezing rain mark is actually in the warmer sector, so I don't know, it's so hard to tell. So I'd say that's mostly of a freezing rain / rain, okay? And then snow likely up here where it's cold enough to be snow, but rain between there is probably like 32 and 35 degrees. So there's not enough for sound readings, but that goes through. And notice the freezing rain does make it into portions of northern Florida, but that's the look at that. So here's the snow potential with this, okay? Going through, that's what comes through. Obviously the GFS model is so overdoing this right now. It's saying like 14 inches of snow in portions of eastern Texas, with a large stretch of like 1 to like, I don't even know. Yeah, 1 to 14 inches of snow. European model is going to take this a little bit farther to the south. And notice how far off that snow line is down. And this is not even snow. Some of this is just straight up freezing rain and sleet and stuff like that. But look at this. It's so much less snow because it's either the system is moving off to the east so fast, or it's just not heavy enough, which I don't tend to believe. But some areas could pick up. I saw one area, I think, like, yeah, 7 inches, or actually, I just saw an 8 inch somewhere here. General ideas. There's potential here. Is it a great potential? No, because it's still 4 days out, but it's increasingly likely. But then again, let's take a look at another model to compare it, okay? Here's the GPPS model. So all these models, here's the Canadian model, right? I think this is the Canadian model, not sure. Anyways, here's the Canadian model, that snow goes through. Every single one of these models, I'm not even joking, icon, every one of these models thinks there's going to be snow down at the coastline. So I don't know, you tell me. Forgot to mention this. I want you to take a look at this real quick. Look at this. So here's your area of pressure, obviously snow falling through Massachusetts. Here we go through Sunday into Monday. Why am I looking at this particularly? Because if we look at the precipitation falling right now, and we look at the winds, this is near blizzard conditions right here. All the way through Ellsworth, back through Rockland, all the way back through Rhode Island in not Massachusetts, but Providence, back through Yormouth and the Cape Cod area. This is blizzard conditions. And if we go a little bit farther, where it gets a little bit more gusty here, the precipitation is still there. This is blizzard conditions. 37 miles per hour in Ellsworth, Belfast at 35 miles per hour, Rockland at 35 miles per hour. This is borderline blizzard conditions. I wanted to take a look at the temperatures just before the video ends, okay? So here we go. This is through the 18th and 19th. The upper plains is the first to see it. Quickly goes down right below zero quickly. But I want you to notice, look how far that freezing line gets. The European model thinks it's going to get as far down in northern Florida, where even near Tampa we would be well below average temperature. But look how cold it is in the northern half of the country. And then it switches off to the east. It gets really cold right here. I'm going to go back a few frames, like right around here. It gets really cold with most people below zero in the northern half of the country. That moves through, that first Arctic blast moves through. Another one may be likely through the 23rd. And then another one comes through potentially on the 27th. And then yet another one comes through on the 30th. So, and that could stretch for days. So that's a potential. GFS model, boom, just like that. Very cold temperatures. Another Arctic blast likely on the 23rd, just like the European model. And then another, and you can see that cold air building in Canada. You can just see it building. And another warm-up potential with the GFS model. I don't know if I buy that yet. But then another Arctic blast and another one for early February. This looks very cold, folks. Alright, so that's going to do it. So obviously, things to watch for. Snowstorm along the eastern seaboard. Where that lines up is still in question right now, but I think the GFS model will end up being the correct one. I tend to believe the European model more, because the European model is pretty good with snowstorms, in my opinion. But GFS model, I think is going to be end up correct. After that, we have to watch for is down in the Gulf of Mexico, particularly along the Gulf Coast, back to Florida, where we can potentially see a winter storm form snow, sleet, freezing rain, and just plain rain along the Gulf of Mexico coast. Next thing will be is a major, just absolutely major Arctic blast, probably the coldest we've seen in years, especially 2024, 2023, 2022 were all pretty mild years, right? It was 2022 and from there and into the past where we saw our average winters across the northern half of the country. This is very rare, and this could lead to a winter storm in the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, that's all I have for this video. So again, things to watch for: snowstorms, northeast snowstorm, Gulf of Mexico snowstorm, and Arctic blast. All possible. The one that looks most likely right now is the northeast snowstorm and the Arctic blast, obviously. But yeah, that's really going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys did enjoy, please at least consider liking the video. It would help me out a lot. And if you can, please subscribe to the channel. We are trying to reach 35 subscribers. We are now, what? I don't even know. 12 subscribers shy of 50 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.